How it all came about was we're back in perhaps 1974, end of 1974. The Vietnam War was starting to come to a close. Our troops were coming back because Gough Whitlam had become the Prime Minister and was bringing our troops back. And the parish priest of St Joseph's Moorebank, Terry Duggan, he'd been a full-time chaplain, done 2 tours of Vietnam, and he was then come back, became the first parish priest of St Joseph's Moorebank and a reserve chaplain as well. And he must have been tasked with the job of getting younger priests into the army, and so there was 4 of us that he got in because we all had the army was after chaplains for cadets, so it started with cadets, and so there was myself and 3 other priests. We all had big youth groups. I had my first parish was Panania, behind Bankstown, and I had 300 kids in this youth group, and the other 3 priests were much the same. And so that's so he rang me up one day and he said, "Would you join the army?" And I said, "Oh no, don't be silly. That's for tough guys, you know. I'm a £10 weekly, you know. My God, no." You know, after seeing everything they poured, our soldiers were involved with Vietnam, I thought, "Oh my God, no." And he said, "Oh, don't say no, don't say no." He said, "I'll ring you back tomorrow and I'll, you know, for your answer." I said, "All right, okay." So 6 months later, he rings me back and says, "What's your answer?" And I said, "What was the question?" and you know, that's how it happened. And he said, "Oh, you know, come on, we need some young priests." And in those days, of course, if a priest asked you to do something to help, then that was the way, you know, that's how we were brought up. That's how we were, you know, taught by our parents, etc. And, you know, you're in the church and priest asks for help. So I said to him, "Well, I don't know what I'll contribute to the army, but maybe the army will do something for me." And I always believed that, you know, I think army did more for me because God knows what I might have been like as a priest without
the army.
Without the army, yeah.
So you were a priest for how long before joining the ADF?
Right. Well, basically 3 years. I was basically just 2 years, 10 months to
ordained.
Yes, I was ordained 2 years, 10 months when I signed up. So he came over to Panania from Moorebank, which, you know, was about a 20-minute drive from where he was at Moorebank. And in those days, of course, there were 13 sheets of paper, A3, with carbon under them. And he says, you know, he's going through sign here. And I looked up at him one stage and said, "Can I get out of this?" And he says, "Oh yes, no worries at all, no worries at all." And of course he lied.
Because he'd signed the contract.
yes. I always sort of think he lied, you know. Once you get in, that's it, sort of thing.
So,
and I've never regretted it.
So getting in, that was in what year? Talk about getting in.
So I was then commissioned on the 6th of June 1975. That was my commission.
Okay.
Yes. And it was signed by the Governor General, who was John Kerr at the time, and the Minister of Defence was Bill Morrison, because it was Labor Party. So once I was commissioned, I was then posted to Cadet Brigade, which was at Crow's Nest, Caree Street, something like that, in North Sydney. So that was the posting for.
That was your initial
posting, because we were all posted into a cadet unit because that was what they wanted at the time. And then maybe it was about 1978, Gough Whitlam then shut down, or 76, he shut down the cadets, and we then were posted into reserve units. and so I was posted to 21 Construction Regiment.
After being at Crow's Nest?
Yes, after being with cadets, yes. So cadets got closed, and then I was posted to 21 Construction Regiment. And 21 Construction Regiment, the headquarters was at Haberfield. So once I was commissioned, I was then posted to 2 Cadet Brigade, which was at Crow's Nest, Caree Street, something like that, in North Sydney. So that was the posting for.
That was your initial
posting, because we were all posted into a cadet unit, because that was what they wanted at the time. And then maybe it was about 1978, Gough Whitlam then shut down, or 76, he shut down the cadets, and we then were posted into reserve units. And so I was posted to 21 Construction Regiment.
After being at Crow's Nest?
Yes, after being with cadets, yes. So cadets got closed, and then I was posted to 21 Construction Regiment. And 21 Construction Regiment, the headquarters was at Haberfield.
So from Crow's Nest to Haberfield, tell us a little bit about your service history over 43 and a half years. Maybe where you've served and in what capacity.
Okay, all right. So the first, usually it was a 2 or 3 unit year posting. I had, I think it was 3 years at 21 Construction Regiment, which was really, they were a great bunch, engineers are, of course. The annual camps we did were always very well run by the COs, particularly each of them that I was in the units when I was a unit chaplain. 21 Construction Regiment, we rebuilt Tarlington Road, which was up at Canungra. Canungra was the Land Warfare Centre, and I always remember Canungra with happy memories, because there were 2 incidences there. One was I was in a culvert. We all had our shirts off and we were digging this culvert out, and I was in there with the guys, and the adjutant came along, this captain, and he called me out of the culvert, and he said, "Padre," he said, "you're an officer. You don't do things like that." And I went, "Oh, okay." And so I had to go put my shirt back on. And he diddly-bopped up further up the road. I then took my shirt off, jumped back in the culvert, and the guy said to me, "What did he say?" And I said, "Oh, he said I was an officer and I shouldn't be working like this. I should just be sitting watching you." And they all roared laughing. They thought that was very funny, which I did too, I suppose. As I said, as a chaplain then, I was walking up Tarlington Road, and I got on this guy invited me to jump on his D9 bulldozer, and for about 2 hours he poured his heart out to me. It was most interesting. I was most moved. It's always something. There's different things stick in your mind of what happened, different units that you're in. After I finished with 21 Construction Regiment, I was moved to first 15 Royal New South Wales Lancers. I was there for 4 years. I had 4 or 5 years there, which was a bit of a long stint, but in the reserve you don't, like in those early days, you could stay, like I was 3 years I think at 21 Construction, then I had at least 4 at Parramatta Lancers. So that took me up to about 7 years in the reserve. And Parramatta Lancers was another great, because they were ex-Vietnam vets as well. And in Parramatta Lancers too, there was a very mixed group of guys, men. a couple of police officers, things like that, a couple of coppers as well. But different, coming from everywhere, but coming from around the Parramatta Blacktown area. So, and I was at Blacktown around that period of time too. So I sort of gelled with the blokes there, and we had some very interesting unit activities, and of course our annual camp was always good out the back of Broken Hill. One of the times there was we took all the APCs out on the train on flat tops. They put them all out on flat tops at Parramatta Railway Station, drove them down to Parramatta Railway Station, and they went on flat tops. And the CO asked me to drive a truck. There was a 40 convoy truck to Broken Hill, and the first one broke down on the M4 near Penrith. The next one was at Lapston, and as I went past them, I was down the back of I was one of the last sort of trucks, and I'd bless them as they waited to be fixed by the Ramey fellows. And the guys would say, "Yours will break down too, Padre." What happened was we all these trucks were all hopeless, all no good. And so the regular army guys, of course, would give us their worst trucks because most of the reservists were could put these trucks back together again like new, and that was the way things worked. That was so funny. And so first night we was maybe out Bathurst somewhere. We parked in a parking area. It was a bit like form the covered wagons. The Indians are attacking, and we cooked dinner, sang a few songs. Chatted and then rolled up in our sleeping bags and then took off the next day. And I broke down. I think I was the last truck to break down. Just outside, I was 80 k's out of Broken Hill, and I broke down, and I had to wait. And the guy just came with some wire and put whatever he had to do. He just wired the car till I got it to the showground. And when I got to the showground, I went and reported to the CO that I'd arrived. And he said, "Oh, good, Padre." He said, "But you got to go out bush and tell Private Smith his mother's has just died. We've just been notified his mother's died." And he said, "The Edge will take you out." He said, at this stage it was about 6 p.m. So he said, "Have a shower, get something to eat, and then the Edge will take you out to where Smith is. Where the guys are." So I said, "Yeah, right, okay." So do all that, and then we're driving out. Myself and the adjutant are driving out, and we're on. It was sort of like a sandy track. It wasn't bitumen road or anything because we were out bush, and where we were exercising with the vehicles. And the Adj says to me, "Oh, Padre," he says, "I wouldn't like your job." And he says, "Why not?" I said, "Why not?" He said, "Oh, telling a poor young guy his mother's dead." I said, "Oh, no, it's pretty easy. So I'll just get the platoon on the road, and I'll just say, all those with mothers take one step forward. Smith, stand fast." And he nearly runs into the tree, and he says, "You're not going to do that, are you, Padre?" And I go, "No, you idiot. Keep your eye on the road." So there were, Parramatta Lancers were really good. Basically, of course, in those sorts of annual camps, you do mass. There's a bit of counselling. There was not a lot of counselling. The guys were pretty all put together. They weren't too, they were pretty good. The guys. In those days, there was no ladies sort of in the units. It was still all guys. And so you did church parades, and you did lots of them. I did lots of church parades because I'd jump around the squadrons, and then move around all of the unit. yeah, so that was sort of what happened there.
Mm-hmm.
After that, then I was 7-8 years. I did the chaplain's intermediate course, and then from that I then became the co-ward chaplain for the Sydney area for the Fire Brigade. So I was then the co-ward, so I was posted into Holsworthy, and basically looked after the chaplains in the reserve.
That was in what year? Posting to Holsworthy?
It would have been 1988, 1989.
So this is 13, 14 years into service.
Into service, yeah. So,
Okay.
I was then the co-ward chaplain for about 5 years.
Still with reservists.
Still with reservists, yes, yes.
So then that takes you up to nearly 20 years.
Yeah, yes.
Nearly 20 years at that point.
Yeah. And in between, at least 5-6 times a year, we would go down to Kapooka, which is the recruit training battalion down in Wagga, or Kapooka is just outside Wagga, and we would run what they called character. It started off as character guidance, and then which came from America. It was an American program after the war, and we picked it up in 1959. It was running since 1959, and so we used to run this character guidance, and it wasn't so much guiding the recruits' characters. It was basically a moral development course, and the last subject was always the religious component. That faith was important as well, and we'd show a couple of videos.
As part of the character guidance,
yes,
there was a faith component embedded.
Yes,
into that.
The last
For all new recruits.
For all the recruits had to do it,
regardless of denomination.
Yes, and it was in every defence entry point, Army, Navy, Air Force. It was done.
So you could say that religion is an integral part of ADF service.
Yes,
that is embedded.
Yes, and still is.
And instilled in all new recruits, regardless of Army, Air Force, Navy, that they all go through a...
yes. And so I went from character guidance to character training. So
Interesting.
They changed it from a guidance to a training because I think maybe the emphasis, thinking of the guidance of guiding your character. So I would do that about 5-6 times a year, which I quite enjoyed as well. In 2000, when we went to East Timor, the principal chaplain at the time asked me then to join up full time, and so I was posted into Kapooka. Full time, yes. Well, it was CFTS, so it was a 6 months posting. So I did down there, and Kapooka, I did enjoy Kapooka. Kapooka was terrific because you work hard. I know it was something like for 5 weeks I was working with the recruits, and then the regular Army chaplain said to me, "You've been with the recruits for the last 5 weeks. Have a break. Work with the staff." So I then would visit the staff areas and work with the staff. And then, of course, with that, you'd finish at 4:30 sort of thing, and then I'd go for a run or go down to the gym. I had a great gym, had a great swimming pool. That's why I love Kapooka.
the physical fitness you quite enjoy, and still to this day,
yes.
It sounds like you still enjoy the physical fitness
staying
part of life.
Yes. That's one of the things I think they instilled into me is stay fit. That Prime Minister Howard gives to people in service, and so that's after 6 years. If you do 6 years of service, and you see other people like SES or those sorts of people, we get that. This is my Reserve Forces decoration for service as a reserve officer or in the reserve. So the medal, of course, stands for 15 years, and then each bar stands for 5 years after that. So it's It's now called the Federation Star, and for 40 years service. Although I did 43 and a half.
Okay.
So yeah. So you know, yeah. So that's me. I think in looking back, I think, you know, as I said to Father Duggan, I said, I don't know what I could give to the army, but what the army's given to me, and I think it's given me a broadness of ministry, because otherwise, just as in your own denomination, you're a little bit more blinkered, whereas being with other denominations and no belief, soldiers that don't believe at all, that gives you a more broadening experience, and I think that's made me a better person, particularly in the parishes I've been in as well. So I think that's, you know, I've really enjoyed that part of it. As a when I was at 2div, and then as staff chaplain, I think that was the other defining aspect of chaplaincy is mixing with the other denominations. That you know, we're all in it together. We're all working for the same Lord. Plus, also, of course, working for the soldiers in the Defence Forces.
I think that's
or in army, you know, army in particular. But it goes across the three services.
I think that you've touched on a really good insight there of serving in the military. It's a you know, very unique perspective from Padre.
Yes.
Where if you weren't in the military, how much exposure would you ever have had that in it as a chaplain?
No. Well, I know. You know, the first couple of parishes, there was no ministers fraternal. That's what it was called in those early days. It's called something else now, I think. But ministers fraternal, I had one when I was at 5DOC with a couple of the other denominations, mainly Anglican, Presbyterian, and Uniting Church. Some of the other denominations didn't want to be part of it. But yes, but in the military, because you're with well, it was mainly the main denominations, but in the last few years we brought in the Pentecostal denomination, and you know, that was a good experience as well, and particularly with Chaplain Ralph Esterby that I worked with, and he took over my position when I finished up at the end of 2019.
Okay.
So 2018, 2018, so he took over, so Ralph was a good bloke.
It's in good hands.
It's in good hands.
Good.
So I hope, Ralph, you're still doing okay. Most of the time, the COs were pretty pro-chaplain. So it wasn't so much you had to, you know, push your bit, the chaplaincy part. Most COs were supportive and let you do your work as well, your job as well. Because, you know, morale was always an important aspect of unit chaplaincy. So, you know, in the units I was involved in, and you know, that sort of was that happened. I had no troubles. Like I had a wonderful 43 and a half years. That's, you know, I always look back and with great delight and joy that was the thing. It was I never left thinking I'm glad I've gone. You know, I must admit one of the good exercises we did do though was up in Bathurst Island. 2div sent doctors up there to do arthroscopies and ear operations on the Tiwi people.
Sure.
In Bathurst and mainly Bathurst Island it was. But we did they did 140, something like 140 arthroscopies. And one of the unit was from Adelaide. that we went up, and I was the chaplain to them for the 15, 16 days. And the doctor said to me, one of the doctors said to me one day, he said, "Padre, you haven't been in to bless my operation." And I went, "Oh, okay." And so I said, "When are you working next? When's your next op?" And he said, "Oh, after lunch, come in after lunch." So I went in and, gowned up a bit and mask on and everything. And he was this big footballer, T-weave footballer. And he, and he said, "Now, Padre, just watch the monitor." He said, "I put the knife in this way and the camera's in that way." And he just runs the knife up and down the guy, and scrapes his bone, etc. Cartilage, cleans the cartilage, and 40 minutes later, you see. And to my mind, I always thought, "Oh my gosh, I hope I never have to have that." And of course, I've had three arthroscopies on my right knee and one arthroscopy on my left knee, thanks to that 6 months' time in Kapuka. So, but that was great. That was really it wasn't challenging. It was just a great experience to help the Tiwi people. Because the other thing besides the arthroscopies, they were doing the kids' ears. That they had perforated eardrums. The kids, because they were playing or they were swimming in dirty water, and so the mums would put little pebbles in the kids' ears because of the noise, the tinnitus. Presumably it was the tinnitus, the noise, and so we were re-sewing the eardrum.
Wow.
And I watched one of those operations as well
On Bathurst Island.
On Bathurst Island, yeah. Wow. So that was a good 15-day exercise I did that day. So yeah, so they were So not so much challenges. I suppose just as the staff chaplain, the challenge was to get guys in. The hardest challenge, of course, was to get Catholic priests in. Because of the shortage of priests, bishops were not keen on letting people go, even to the reserve, because they sort of thought, oh, they go and we won't see them. Archbishop Fisher of Sydney, however, has been quite generous in letting guys go. So before I finished, I got 3 young priests into chaplaincy, and I just read. There's been another priest gone into the Navy full time, so Archbishop Fisher's led a few guys into to support the military ordinariate. So that was
you were successful in your mission to keep both organisations.
Yes, well, I did know this other guy because he was to join the Navy. Martin, I did know Martin. He was thinking of joining us, but then he's going to join the Navy. It was the broadening experience of life with different people, and also, of course, army teaches you so much. You learn so much in the army too, just on your abilities in working with people, being a people's person, rather than a dictator, perhaps. To be able to work with people and bring people along. I think army.
Which goes against the general sense of yes sir, no sir, and you're talking about people skills that the army has taught you as a padre in the army, that it's actually taught you a lot of good, valuable people skills. Yeah. So I guess you're breaking the stereotype, listening to this.
Yeah. And also, because army puts on a lot of courses that you can attend, because there's all conferences. Every corps has conferences to go. You have a conference. The chaplains department would have a conference as well every year. And so there's always, it was a Monday to Friday. Then it sort of cut back with, money issues, cut back to 4 days. But there was always good talks put on, that educated you on different aspects of military life. We'd always have the Chief of Army give a talk, would give a presentation, or one of the CEOs of one of the brigades. would do the initial presentation and welcome, and they're always very supportive. So particularly the present Chief of the Defence Force, Angus. One of the things that Army, of course, has done for me is a little bit of cash, and so I've been able to travel. And my niece lived in London for 8 years, and so for 8 years she and I would meet up somewhere in Europe and travel. And so this particular year, whatever year it was now, we did Turkey, and we had a wonderful sort of trip through Turkey that she organised. And we, of course, I said to her, we must go to Gallipoli. So so that was fine. She organised that. And the other interesting thing too, of course, talking about that was it was the 75th anniversary of Lone Pine at Gallipoli, and so 2Div was there. They arrived at the time, the couple of days we were there, or one of the days we were there. They were on a day trip because they were staying in Kanakali, whereas Therese had placed us in the hotel that usually all the dignitaries stay at, which was called Kum, K-U-M. And it was very nice, and there was hardly anyone there at the time. It was about 10 guests. So we went down and got there at 4:30 in the morning, and stood there at 4:30, and it was a wonderful morning. It was a wonderful morning. It was a full moon, and the full moon was sort of just on the water to the beach, and you could just imagine. I stood there with Therese saying, because I did, been doing reading in these areas, and as I said to Therese, you could just imagine the ships out and the light boats coming in with the troops, and then you'd look up to the heights where the Turkish soldiers were firing on our troops, and so it was very special. And then we walked around the various cemeteries, and we found. Quite a lot of people's, we sort of saw a lot of names. We saw a lot of soldiers and their names, and it was a very emotional morning. And then we got back to the hotel. We had a car. Therese had organised a car, so we had a car, drove back to the hotel. It might have been 3 k's away.
So they dropped. Was this ANZAC Day you were there for?
No, it wasn't ANZAC. No, it was I think it was in May.
Okay.
I think it was in a couple of days in May. But it was very hot. It was hot at the time. Anyway, we got back, and we were walking back into the hotel, and there were all these buses and everything. And I said, "Oh, look at all the buses and everything." And then, because it was around lunchtime, and then all of a sudden I saw the chaplain, who I knew.
You didn't know they were going?
No, I didn't know they were coming. Although he had mentioned it. Yeah. But I didn't know when it was.
Yeah.
And so I talked to him and I said, what's happened? We didn't see you down, because they were supposed to be at the beach as well. That's right, they were supposed to be at the beach as well. And I said, what happened? I said, you didn't arrive. And he said, don't mention it. And he said, the ferry broke down, and so from Kanakali across, and or Kanakale, as they say, across to Gallipoli and across the strait. And so they were pushed back on the time, because trucks, whoever, there's a timetable who gets on these ferries first, and so they didn't make it. And so they were having lunch, and then of course they then had to, they then went off to Lone Pine, which we then joined them in the afternoon for the service at Lone Pine. And Gary Towle, that was the chaplain's name, Gary Towle, Towle. And so he led a service in the afternoon at Lone Pine.
Their own
Their own
So-
two did, yeah. So they had flags and the slouch hat on the altar piece that was there, and he led a service there, and we joined in. So that was good. But yes, he was. But the dawns, just being there at 4:30 in the morning was really wonderful. That was wonderful. So that was good. And as I said to Therese then afterwards, I said, "Oh, that was really good. I'm really happy we did that." And you can, she didn't get as much out of it as I did, but I got a lot out of it. To appreciate what the soldiers have done, what our forebears have done, and also what soldiers do in more present theatres of operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. And of course, on the radio yesterday, the announcer read out a poem, "A Soldier Has Fallen," and it was very moving, to listen to that poem. He doesn't know who wrote it, but he just, sort of just went through, and that was the stanza. And a soldier has fallen, and that's what you sort of remember. A soldier fell for us, We had in the next street. There's a retirement village, and it's run by the RSL, and there's quite a few soldiers in there. But one I buried three or 4 weeks ago now, Rusty Rust, or Ernest Rusty Rust, his name was. He was a commando and a coast watcher in World War II. And when I first came to Austral and I met him, he told me some horrific things. There were 82 in his unit amongst the coast watchers, but only 25 survived. The rest were captured by the Japanese, tortured, etc. And it was all very sad what he told me. And that was an emotional experience too. So yes,
in the later years of Rusty's life, that you got to
he died.
Meet him.
He died at 98. He was 98. So I've known him for the last six years. So yeah, so I remembered him today. So God love him. May he rest in peace.
Amen.
So that's So when you sort of see them like that, you see the guys, you see the march that and see as we all get a bit older, you see the sacrifice they made, particularly with Rusty here. He was a lovely man, but of course they come back wounded, and some scars are physical, and some, of course, are mental, and particularly we know today from Iraq and Afghanistan the mental PTSD that soldiers suffer today. And so you have these caring agencies, and even some ex-soldiers have set up helps for guys, mates for mates, etc. That are there for soldiers today, or ex-soldiers today. So yeah, but of course, all in this, the chaplain is involved in all this, particularly unit chaplains. Particularly when I was at staff chaplain, as staff chaplain, working with the guys at Holsworthy, they were called out at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night to a serving soldier who was suffering PTSD, and having issues. So they were, chaplains are there. Basically, they work 24/7. So yeah.
So, Father Bob, thanks for today. I think it's been
Thank you.
really, really good interview to grab your rich history of the Australian Defence Force over the 43 years. If we were to finish our interview today on ANZAC Day, April 25th, 2020, for any Australians considering joining the Australian Defence Force, either full-time or as a reservist, would you have any advice or a message for them?
Well, I think, if people are interested, serving your country, serving the nation, putting your life on the line is a very noble act. I suppose from my perspective, chaplains are important for both moral and spiritual for the soldier. So I would encourage chaplains, ministers of religion, whether it's Catholic or the other Christian denominations, or of course we are taking Jewish. We have a Jewish chaplain.
Okay.
We have a couple of Jewish chaplains, and of course the military is looking at other faiths as well, Muslim faiths, Sikh, etc. as well.
Okay.
Just as I was finishing up, they were looking at chaplains to those denominations in the military as well. So I would say it's a very worthwhile ministry, and it's a very fulfilling ministry. And perhaps I go back to the start. Sometimes it's not so much what you do for the army or whichever service you serve, but perhaps it's what they do for you. The type of person you are from your service with the military. So I've thoroughly enjoyed my time. The mateship is something I miss. While you have mateship with your brother priests, but in the military and chaplaincy, it was a very close relationship that you had with the other guys, and that's something I think about, miss now and again, you know. So yes, but yes, if you're interested, give it a go.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, John.
Happy ANZAC Day. And we can see we are being socially distanced today, so even in times like this, we still have an opportunity to celebrate ANZAC Day within the current restrictions that I feel that we will come out stronger as a country, and I'm sure as a Defence Force, and
hope so.
Get on the other side of this, cross the bridge.
Cross the bridge,
as they say.
Come out the other side, yes.
Very good.
Thank you.